Hey everyone, it's very, very hot in here. And because of that, I'm like Styx, Hex, and Hammer. I'm doing it shirtless. But unlike Styx, Hex, and Hammer, I'm really shy, so I can't show myself shirtless on the webcam. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you might want to see me, other might be thanking God that it's not going to happen, but it is what it is. Okay, I've made my decision, I'm sticking to my guns. And instead, I'm going to do this like it's your boy Zach video where he just shows a still picture and then talks for 10 minutes straight. And there's a lot of things to talk about here. I mean, it's just the most difficult thing that I had to do this year, which is to go through an entire video of the GDC. Now, if you don't know what GDC is the Game Developer Convention, where people who make video games talk to each other. And it kind of shows why games are shit, really. I mean, it really shows, because I went through all 40 minutes of it, and at no point do they try to talk about how to make games more fun, how to make games more entertaining. The only thing they talk about is how to manipulate people. Like, really, how to subvert people. Like, they will say people behave in this way. How can we change our customers to behave in a different way? So no focus on how to make a good product, no focus on how to make something that's memorable. It's really like, okay, we can use our propaganda through video games in order to manipulate the public. And this is not a conspiracy theory. They're doing it out in the open. It's public knowledge. Like, you can go and watch the video yourself if you really want to do that. And every time they made the point, every time they said something, I just wanted to scratch myself. It's like, I just like scratch myself, because it's like there's so much to unpack in every single frame of that video. Like, it's 40 minutes long, but I guarantee to you, like, this picture alone can get me to talk about 10 minutes. So imagine what it would be if I would go through the entire thing. It's just unbelievable. And let me give you an example, okay? First of all, they constantly recycle garbage. Like, these talking points have been debunked so many times, and you can tell that they're very old. Like, they're not updated. Because if you look at their stats, it's like who's making video games, and you're going to see 76% men, 22% women, and 2% transgender people. It's like, so you're saying trans people aren't women? Like, trans people aren't men or women, right? It's not non-binary people, it's like trans people. So you're making the statement, right? Like, you'll notice that a lot of graphs, they don't have this anymore. Like, they don't include this, because trans women are real women, trans men are real men, so you wouldn't make like a third category. It's just like nitpicking. It just points out that this is an old study, right? But the talking point is just like the dumbest thing that I heard over and over and over, and it doesn't really make any sense. But of course, if you were to point it out, they would probably escort you out of the meeting, right? So they say that 48% of people who play video games are women, but only 22% of the people that make video games are women. And they find this as a problem. So let me put it this way. Imagine if I were to make the statement, 99% of women live in houses, but only 1.2% of women are bricklayers. Like, the fuck does one have to do with the other? Like, think about it. It really doesn't make anything to do with one. Like, so what if the majority of women, like the overwhelming actually amount of female population on Earth lives in houses, but only a very small minority of women are actually into doing the physical labor of construction? Why is that a problem? What if I were to say, despite the fact that 100% of men do kindergarten, go through kindergarten, only a small minority of men are kindergarten teachers? Like, what does one thing have to do with another? Why are they connected? Secondly, if you are to say that 48% of women play video games, despite the fact that 22% of women are into game development, then it shows that the system, like the current system, is actually something that women like. Because the system, despite of the people making it, is producing equality. So why exactly do you need to change the system? Why do you think that by changing the system, you're still going to maintain the same equality? Well, it's not 100% equal, but I would say close enough. Then, like, it's also the argument that when you say games, It's like saying people who watch television or people who read books. That doesn't say a lot. It's like, what genre? What exactly are they playing? Is it that if I play Street Fighter, am I to expect like 1 out of 2 opponents to be a woman? If I play Company of Heroes, am I to expect that every single match, 1 out of 2 is going to be a woman? Or is it like different genres? And if it's different genres, then shouldn't you study the genre in detail? It's like, okay, strategy game. Who plays strategy games? And then you cater to the needs of those players. But again, like assuming you'd want to change something, considering that the system is working. So yeah, I mean this is like the really interesting take. But they really don't talk about the interesting stuff, right? And the interesting stuff is like, okay, why are there so few women in game development? Now, they will assume that it's because of sexism, because whenever they can't answer something or they feel uncomfortable of talking about the problem, they will always assume it's either racism or sexism. Like racism and sexism is the inexplicable force that binds things together, according to these people, which is very bizarre. I will tell you why only 22% of women are into video gaming development. Because video gaming development in 2021 is a very difficult and also soul-crushing and very unsatisfying industry. Like, I actually speak with game developers because I have a big channel and I happen to know a few. Most of them are unhappy. The only developers that are generally happy are the indie developers. And I'll tell you why they're unhappy, by the way. Okay, I'll tell you that. Not only is the company trying to thought control them, because if you think like the company trying to thought control the customer, like I shouldn't even go into what they're doing to their own staff. Not only are they mistreated, you know, they have to work in open offices. They are under constant supervision. Like the company is very invasive in their personal affairs, reading their emails, making absolutely sure that everything they do is monitored. But it's also like the companies often force the people to crunch. Crunching means like you're going to spend overtime. So they might work you 11, 12 hours a day, sometimes Saturday and Sunday. Some companies may pay you, some companies may not. Like at this point, you literally are secluded from the rest of the world, right? Like you don't even get to see your family. And this is by the time the game is done. And once the game is done, once the game is finished, most of the time they just sack everyone. So if you're a game developer, you're constantly worried about your next job. You're constantly worried, it's like, oh crap, like this project is going to end up soon. Like I need to find some other job. And if it happens that your game doesn't sell well because of bad marketing or, because of whatever other reasons, like maybe someone from the team said something dumb on Twitter, like, hey, if you're a sexist, don't buy our game, that type of shit. Okay, you're not to blame. Like you didn't do anything bad. But if it happens, well, now the game doesn't sell. Now your name is attached to that game. And now people are a little bit more iffy when they hire you. Because if the HR lady gets like 10,000 people applying for the same job, like obviously she's going to look at what other games they worked in the past, and the people who worked on more successful projects are more likely to get hired than the ones that are. So being a game developer is incredibly frustrating when it comes to job security. It's incredibly difficult. I mean, maybe some people can have satisfaction from it, but, like imagine if you're working at a big company and all they get you to do is to draw armor, like tons of armor on characters, and you do that entire day for like 12 hours a day. It's not very creative, It doesn't really allow you to expand your creativity. It's very menial. And then again, like you might have to give away your privacy, your thoughts, because now when you're working at the company, they control everything about you. They try to spy on you more than a jealous ex. And again, like this is something that I know from many developers who worked at big companies. It's not something that small developers experience, like indie game developers or developers back in the day. And maybe this is like one of the reasons that you don't get many women that want to go into that industry. Like, fuck, I wouldn't want to go into that industry either. I mean, you get a lot of men that maybe do it just for like the, biggest passion in the world and the most devotion, or because they have absolutely no other alternative, right? Because they done the error into going into the industry, and now they don't have many options. But I mean, like this is a much more reasonable explanation than sexism. It's like, oh yes, we're going to keep women away because, we here at video gaming developers, we're surrounded by women. Like, we have so much women in our life. It's just like, we just don't want them at the workplace. I guarantee you that, like, the men at the workplace, because they're spending 12 hours there, they probably don't get to see women anyway. So if the company happens to hire women, they're probably going to get a lot more attention than in most other industries. The positive type of attention, okay? The benevolent sexism, okay? Maybe that's the problem, is the benevolent sexism. Like, women don't like to go into a workplace where literally every man trips himself in order to try to please milady. So yeah, but like, instead of talking about like the negativity that happens in these corporations, and at least try to improve the life of the game developers, they talk about trivial shit and how to manipulate people. I mean, if you look at the game that won the Game of the Year from any publication, it was The Last of Us 2. And The Last of Us 2, if you look at some of the insider leak from there, like the amount of inhumanity going at that company, the amount of crunch that they were doing was just like borderline slavery. I mean, from what I understand, like 2 out of 3 employees would just quit within a couple of weeks. Like that's an insane turnover rate. Like, it was a worse turnover rate than even like in the worst industries, like the service industry. And like the reason for that having a high turnover rate is that most people don't want to have a career being a waiter. Like they go there during a summer job, they do the job, and then they leave. So it's not like you have like a major career opportunity. I mean, there are some restaurants that do offer career opportunities, but like most of the service industry is made by the young people that just want to be a waiter for a summer and make a little bit of money on the side. But like, yeah, games. The Last of Us Part 2 like had it even worse. Okay, like it offered even worse than the turnover rate than the service industry. And again, like, it won Game of the Year because, like, nowadays, like, if you're a progressive company and you talk about these issues, it's actually considered that you're progressive, you're a left-leaning company fighting against the system, despite the fact that you are part of the system, like, you are part of the 1%, and you get to abuse people, and you get to milk them out of every last bit of human energy, and then you're like, complaining that the people are the problem because they're not being progressive enough. It's absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, like, screaming at a company because it doesn't hire enough women, that's an easy fix. Like, the company can fix that without taking many losses financially. But if you were to scream at a company that, hey, maybe you should pay the people more that you're crunching, maybe you shouldn't be able to make people work 14 hours a day, maybe you shouldn't spy on every single email that your workers are sending, maybe you shouldn't do any of these things, well, then all of a sudden the company might actually take a hit on their financial revenue. And that's why they would rather have you talk about this than to talk about the real economic issues. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section. Take care.